Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another Wild Wednesday, bringing to you conversations around intimacy, the word fuck, and living in a body you trust. This whole month is focused around removing the mask of masculinity. And I have my epic human friend over here, Najja Plowden, by my side. What's up? He and I have been dear friends here in New York
Funny, man, we've been friends for well over a decade. It's going on 2 decades.
Yeah. We met in Union Square, dancing, playing soccer.
Best thing in the world. 2 best things in the world. Absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
It's been great.
And you have been someone that inspires me around just who you are, what you represent, and how well-versed you are in the knowledge that you carry around even what it means to be a man and taking full ownership and responsibility of that. So this conversation around masculinity and removing the mask, I want to hear a little bit about you just kind of riffing on this. And we had a conversation earlier around toxic masculinity. What are your thoughts around that specifically? And then let's open it up.
And if I, first of all, thank you for this opportunity. You are absolutely incredible. And you know, anyone that knows you and anyone that follows you knows how immensely powerful you are and what you bring to the table. So I truly honor you and I thank you. If I ramble, just cut.
Let's do it.
But for me, toxic masculinity, I think it can be a potentially dangerous term. And the reason why is, you know, we're misrepresenting something that's been corrupted. We're saying, oh, the thing that we see is a toxic version of masculinity when it's actually no form of masculinity at all. It's actually a huge form of a deception. I would prefer to call it like a toxic boyhood or a toxic immaturity. Because what it means to be masculine, very few have actually tapped into. And it's not because, you know, it's that hard to understand, but it's because of a lack of fathers. It's a lack that goes back so far. Men that have been lied to and told that they have to, like not recently, but about 6 years ago, my father lost his mother. And I remember watching my dad, and at the funeral, he all smiles. Like my dad was, hey, you right? Everything was fun, and he's the guy that lights up the room. Yeah. You know, I get a lot of my joy and my positivity from my dad. He's just a guy that can turn any ugly situation, you know, beautiful. And at a funeral for the loss of his mom, he was this figure of strength. No tears, consoling his younger brother, consoling his older brother, making sure all of the family was strong and okay and that they were grieving and that they had a safe space. He wasn't denying anybody the right to cry. He was just making sure people felt safe and filled, and he was always a point of strength. If you needed strength, you look at my father. And I'm like, damn, man, my dad's amazing. Like, this guy he cares so much about people. In my mind, I'm putting a positive stamp on what my father was doing. Then 2 weeks later, I was coming outside, getting ready to head back to New York, and I hear my father, but I don't see him. I'm looking around on the outside of the last car in the driveway. My father was collapsed on the floor, sobbing. So for 2 weeks, my dad had stuffed down this feeling because his lack of father showed him that he was supposed to be a man. Men don't feel, men don't cry. You laugh it off. You do something to dodge it like the Matrix. And 2 weeks later, when it was too much to bottle up, it was like a shaken bottle of seltzer water. It exploded. And my father was collapsed over, bawling, inconsolable, on the side of our driveway, in front of, like, our neighbors could have come out and seen. And that's not my father. My father never shows weakness in front of people, but he couldn't control it. And I don't know what sparked it. You know, when you're talking to a baby and they're like, and they can't stop. My father was sobbing snot bubbles, and he couldn't audibly express why he was crying, but we all knew. Mom, he lost his mom. And so what I realized is that my father, his whole life, had this image of masculinity that really was no form of masculinity at all. It was what he thought based off of what he learned, with no parentage, with no one there to show him, to guide him, no father. His father just passed away 2 weeks ago in Canada at 102.
Wow.
His father left. He was not around. You know, so it was in his later years that my dad reconciled and had a relationship with his father. My father grew up without a dad. And my grandfather grew up without a father. You know, and copious amounts of injustice have led that, you know, there. But I think the problem with labeling a potential masculinity as toxic, it alienates men who don't want to accept that there could be a better way to being a man. They hear toxic masculinity, nothing about me is toxic, and it sparks something and they rile up.
Trigger.
It's a trigger. Yeah. Toxic. I'm not toxic. I'm a man. I was made this way. I'm supposed to be a man. Yeah. But if we change the terminology from toxic masculinity, and yes, some people might argue, well, there we go again, catering to the masculine. And then I ask the question, well, do you want success or do you want failure? Do you want to be met with optimization or do you want to be met with roadblocks? If you want to be met with roadblocks, keep fighting against the narrative. Or if you want to be met with success, look at what the triggers are and navigate them like they're landmines. Don't go, oh, well, it's a landmine, so what? It shouldn't be there. You know, you blow yourself up, you fail. If I look at it and I go, wow, toxic masculinity has become a real trigger for a lot of men. When the truth is...
Can you also talk about that when it comes to cultural norms and manners?
So, you know, the idea that, you know, this label of masculinity could be leveled on every man is wrong. It's really wrong because we're not taking into account the cultural differences of men. You know, I look at being an African American. I look at being a black man, strong black man who's 38. And I have only now realized what it's become. And when I say now, that's a still ever-growing process. I'm learning what it means to be a man. I made it to 30 years. I made it to 30 years old, never knowing what it meant to be a man. Just thinking that because I could take my junk and stick it in a lady, I'm a man. Just because I could potentially produce a kid, I'm a man. Just because I could fight, I'm a man. Just because I could knock somebody, little pieces. And I never understood what it was. Do you know, and this is full disclosure, it wasn't until I was 28 that I knew how to properly clean my skin, take care of my genitals. No one taught me. My father never taught me how to scrub my genitals, how to make sure to clean, to protect against things like crotch rot. I didn't know those things. And now I'm standing as a man and people are like, what? And I'm like, yeah, as crazy as that sounds, I didn't know. Yeah. So for 28 years of my life, funky, stinky crotch, and did not know. Because nobody was there to say, hey, Naj, let me teach you how to take care of your manly parts. Let me teach you how to take care of your skin. Let me teach you how to scrub your skin. Exfoliate. Go get your nails done. Get your stuff taken care of. Now, men don't do that. But so, you know, going back to the topic of that, the difference between ethnic manhood. As a black man, we have been labeled overtly sexual. And people look at, you know, when you think about the pornography, black men have become fetishes, you know, because we're known for having long, big penises. But, you know, that's it. Like, why? We're the sum of one part, you know. But I realized, how did that get there? Yeah. Okay, well, you look at, let's very quickly round up a massive topic. And I don't want to shrink it, but I want to shrink it just for the sake of time in this one topic. But you look at 400 plus years of slavery, of injustice, slavery, demeaning of an entire people. And you go, okay, well, black men have been demeaned. They have been dogged. Black women, same thing. But black men have been dogged, demeaned, told that they were boy, nigger, uncle. You know, you were this, you were that. You were never called a man. Even after you were emancipated, even after you were set free, you were never called a man. You were still told that you can't be in this town, boy. So being told you're a boy, you're not a man.
And you're not invited.
You're not invited. You're not allowed to be in this space. You can't touch our women. If you do, we'll lynch you. So all these feelings, all these things, I'm now having to do in secret. Right. If I want to be a man, if I want to go up to a woman and say, I like you, I can't let my oppressor know. Because he'll dog me, he'll beat me, he'll crucify me, or if I do, he'll take my child and put him in the cotton fields. He'll take my woman and then rape her also. Like there's so much there. You get into the topic of buck breaking, you know, the raping of African men when they brought them over for slavery, and so then you look at now what you have today. You look at the typical hood. You got all these guys out there, they sag their pants, they talk, son, do-rags, tattoos everywhere, big chains, they floss. Their rap lyrics are, oh man, I'm about to take this bitch and I do it. Everything's about, I gotta claim it, I gotta take it, it's mine, give it to me. Take that girl, yeah. Anybody that steps to me, I'll pop them. This culture of masculinity is a show, it's this thing. It's what we see, but it's all they know because they didn't have fathers. And they're fighting against this reality that somebody told them.
Also a ripple effect.
A ripple effect. So no fathers begets, no fathers begets, no fathers begets, no fathers begets toxic immaturity. Not toxic masculinity. There's very little masculinity for it to even be considered toxic. All it is it's a lack of masculinity. There was a statistic that went out, and just to cut you off real quick, but there was a statistic that went out, and it said, and I may be misquoting it, but it's really interesting, and I recommend anybody to research this. It said 70% of teachers are female, okay, women. 70% of teachers, of grade school teachers, going all the way up to high school, are women. So you leave 30% are male teachers. Less than 3% of that is black men teachers. So, and then it said it was 52% of boys are raised in a single mother home. 52%. That's wow, that's horrible. Are raised in a single parent, but not just a single parent, but a single mom home. So now you have 52% of boys, of men, potential men. You have 70% of their educators are women. Tell me how you get toxic masculinity. You get no masculinity. There is virtually no male influence in these men's lives, in these boys' lives. So they grow up only knowing masculinity from what they see in the movies or what they heard about. That's not masculinity. Yeah. White men are taught you are the kings of industry. Their fathers teach them, you better go out there and get that degree. If you don't, you're a failure. So they see in the home, you got all these, Connecticut boys, they grow up with their mom's a stay-at-home mom and their dad's a commander of industry. So they know dad does what he wants, mom stays at home and takes care of the house. Maids and servants and all this stuff. But daddy can cheat and have his extramarital affairs, but don't mom ever do that. So they grow up thinking that's what manhood is. So then they go and they fast forward, they graduate college, they get a degree, now they're on Wall Street. And what do? What does manhood look like for them? Manhood looks like exactly what they saw their father doing. I look at all the politicians. Last year, there were 18 conservative politicians that got exposed with a homosexual affair. Wow. Okay? Conservative, big-time politicians in Washington and their various states that got exposed for having a homosexual affair. And of these 18, I believe it was 15 of them were staunchly opposed the LGBTQ agenda. Well, how come if they were having a secret affair within that community, were they staunchly opposing that community? Why? How is that a reality for them? Because it went against what they saw, what they learned. That's not a toxic version of masculinity. They never learned masculinity. It's
not the embodiment of masculinity. No. And so when people are even talking about toxic masculinity or I have too much masculine, it's almost like, what is it that we're even talking about? Because
there's no tangible argument. We don't even know.
We don't even know it.
We don't know. Masculinity is a journey, man.
And how does this also relate to women? Because masculinity is even, right, if we're talking about an energy beyond any gender-related type of thing. How do you feel in that conversation?
And let me preface this by saying, in regards to the feminine, I declare my ignorance from the jump. I have learned to tread very lightly on areas I could potentially know very, very much nothing about. I have never lived one day in the life of a woman. I have seen women. I've seen my mom. I've seen my single mom. I've seen my sisters. I have seen my sisters. I've seen my sister friends. I've seen my female friends. I've seen my lovers, my girlfriends. But I've never lived one day in the psyche of a woman. I've recently started to try to comprehend the idea of a woman living every day of her life in fear of men. You know, I came across this tweet that went out, and it was a woman that tweeted out, oh, when I think about it, I get gripped and like I want to cry. She tweeted, she says, "Women, what would you do if every man everywhere had a mandatory curfew, that they had to be home at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. I can't remember what she said." And, you know, and she was just like it was just a question. What would you do if every man everywhere had to? Not we're supposed to, had to. Like it was mandatory. They were in at 10 or in at 9 behind closed doors. What would you do? Elana, when I tell you.
Instantly for me, I'd have like naked dance march parties on the streets.
Elana, when I read this text, like at first when I read the tweet, I laughed. I was like, what a silly question. And then I started going through the comments, the responses. When I tell you, I just bawled. At first it stopped being funny.
Yeah.
And it started being really actually like, you know, you want to commit seppuku. Like I'm just like, ugh. As a man, I watched these women respond, and at first, one woman was like, "I'd go for a walk." And the woman was like, "Shoot, man, I'd go to a club by myself." And then another girl said, "I'd go for a walk." Another girl was like, "Oh, you know, I wouldn't have to go to the bathroom in groups." And then another girl said, "I would go for a walk." And then one by one, 10,000s of women wrote, "I would go for a walk. I'd go for a late night jog. I'd go for a walk. I'd go for a late night jog. I'd go for a stroll. I would sit in the park at night. I'd watch the sunset." Like just, I mean, stuff that I thought was normal.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how much my sisters couldn't do. And then I started to understand the only way I could even begin to process, the only way I could begin to find some type of true empathy, real like kinsmanship with that plight, was my own fear as a black man. Damn.
I love how it was something almost funny and humor brought it into the real stuff, to then another layer of you taking a responsibility of meeting yourself fully around the topic.
And that's where I think the problem with that term toxic masculinity is dangerous, because for me, I'm a person that seeks truth. And I'm a person that I thank the heavens, I thank God, Hashem be praised, that I have learned that correction is for my betterment. And even if it's wrong, even if somebody's like, "Hey, I don't like what you did," hear it. Because I can take it and go, "Is this real? Can I apply this to me? Oh no, it's not real. I can't apply it to me. Okay, cool. Hey, thanks for being willing to speak, truth, even if it was your truth and it wasn't my truth. But thank you, because you cared enough to rebuke me or reprove me."
It almost sounds like a defensive of discernment.
Yeah.
Someone can't actually be able to receive something and be like, does this work for my value and belief system? Yes or no? And this is making that choice.
And not to get political, but this is actually what I've noticed in the world we're living in 2019, why someone like a Trump worked so well for this country. And people can talk about the popular vote or not. That's not my debate. I'm not here to discuss politics. But for me, I try to seek commonality with people, because I only think that it's through commonality that we can actually progress as a society. And when we can find a certain point of an ahad, a oneness, then we can move on. We can move together.
What do you think that is?
Oh, man. It's being heard. It's just being heard. I think, people are tired of being offended. Yeah. And all we are is offended. We're offended. Ooh, toxic masculinity, that offends me. Feminists, they offend me. LGBTQ, you offend me. Like, everything is offensive these days. And there's an entire group of people that just said, F it. And here comes this guy.
Say it.
Fuck it. Like, Say it. And fuck it. And they created a space. They did. They created, They created a space, as scary as it is, for a president like Donald Trump. He slipped right in there, not giving a shit about who he offended. Not giving a shit about what needs to be said politically and correctly. And I do not agree with that from the perspective of a politician. I don't. If you want to be a media guy and you don't want to give a shit, cool, don't give a shit. But if you want to be a president, now you got to give a shit. You got to learn how to navigate that realm. But look, to each their own. Love. And like I use this.
And I'll also just say quickly of there's so much that he represents of the past and bringing that forward, that is like highlighting so many of the triggers and fears of like what it also means to be a black man.
God, and it's like what it means to be any person that at any one point in society was oppressed. Yeah. If you're a woman, if you're black, if you're if
anyone
you're
that is
mentally
not the
handicapped,
hegemonic masculine.
exactly.
Like, totally.
And you know that's a really hard pill to swallow. Yeah. And what it does for me, it doesn't make me hate Trump supporters. It doesn't make me hate MAGA hat wearers. It doesn't make me hate Donald Trump. Every night I pray for Donald Trump. Every night I pray for our government. Every night my son and I, we grip hands and we pray for our society. We pray for our people. Because I'm tired of pointing the finger. Like, for the longest time, and I'm a recovering porn addict. Like, I am a recovering toxic, immature male. Like I said it, I outed myself like 28 years old. Didn't know how to clean myself. Like, until I realized my own hand in the world that I hate and how I have helped to progress it, I'm no better than anybody. And I think until we start recognizing that reality, all we're gonna do is we're gonna have these staunch arguments, we're gonna make up these terms, toxic masculinity, we're gonna hashtag them, and they're gonna gain traction, but our cause will never be accomplished. We will never fix the fight. We will never get to the point where we can stand hand in hand with the enemy. The enemy. You know, I long for the day when, like in Union Square, my favorite place in the city. We love Union Square.
Love it.
There was a picture of me shaking hands with a guy in a full Ku Klux Klan get up. He had the white hood and everything. And I was playing soccer, and I guess they were over there kind of doing a little rally or something. I don't know. And my soccer ball went over by him, and I ran over to get it. And as I look up, I see this guy in a white hood. And I was like, oh, hey, what's up, man? Embraced him in a brother hug, grabbed my soccer ball, turned around, and started playing again. Yeah. People were like, whoa. Apparently, somebody caught the picture. And they were like, yo. And then somebody had called me to come back over and ask why I did that. So I went back up to him, and I had there was a lot of brothers and a lot of color, a lot of black people, standing over there, and a lot of people of color around me. And then there were a lot of white people that were just frothing at the mouth at this guy. And they were like, how could you hug him? He's the image of hate. And I'm like, no, he's not. He's not the image of hate. And I could have said he's the image of ignorance, which he was. Any person who is a white supremacist, any person who is a, or
even just so narrow-headed that
any type of narrow. If you are
any other perspectives,
you are an image of ignorance, and I don't mean that as an offensive stance of ignorance. And this is what I said to him. I didn't say he was an image of ignorance because I knew if I said that, I would have severed any bit of a connection because he would have heard, what are you calling me ignorant? So I had to be cognizant of that. So what I said was, no. He's the image of, he never interacted with me before. All he knows is what black people are on TV. Mm-hmm. I don't blame him. He's the product of his parents and their ideologies. That's not his fault. Totally. He was fed something. Mm-hmm. He was forced. I look at the obese kid. I work in fitness. It's my career.
We're like tracking so many layers.
I know.
And we're going to cut this really soon.
Yeah, and I see obese kids, and my heart goes out for them. Because how'd they get that way? Yeah. Parents just stopped feeding them. They just kept feeding them. And so it's not their fault. The degradation of society, we have to take responsibility. Right. But it's not our fault. Totally. We have to get busy to fix it.
That's the beautiful thing that I want to acknowledge.
And that's, I think, the thing that people starting to understand is that you're not going to get anybody with the term toxic masculinity. Mm-hmm. And it's cool if you want to push it.
How do you feel about removing the mask of masculinity?
God, it needs to be removed. And it needs to be removed. There needs to be, like every day with my son, I tell my son when something goes wrong and he's upset, Bubba, it's okay to whine. It's okay to cry. It's not okay to whine. So Bubba, take your breaths. He does his breathing exercise. He's 2.5. My son is 2.5. And he does his breathing exercise. He goes, and I say, okay. I say, how do you feel? He goes, sad. And I said, okay, it's good. I said, do you want to talk about it? He says, no. I said, okay, cool. I said, how can daddy help? He says, a hug. I said, good, I hug. Mm-hmm. He cry on my shoulders. Mm-hmm. I say, it's okay to cry. Mm-hmm. It's okay to cry. I love crying. it's the most liberating thing is being able to cry, being able to visit my emotions, talk to Najja, how do you feel? How do you feel? Why is that hurting your heart? Oh, okay, that's good. Wow, I need to let it out, getting it out. And then going and grabbing my soccer ball and being able to play, or going and putting on a beat and being able to dance it out. But if I'm taught that I'm not allowed to do that, or I only do it in secret, I'm taught that there's no safe space in community, because I can't cry in front of my friends. As a black man, I can't cry in front of my boys. Well, I gotta keep it gully. But no, that's my community. I should be able to feel vulnerable, you know. And so I think that the mask needs to come off. It wasn't masculinity's mask. It was somebody put that mask on masculinity.
And we've allowed that mask to be
to
on us.
define masculinity. And I'm like, no.
Totally.
I want to redefine what masculinity is. I want to redefine what love is. I want to redefine what femininity is.
And what fuck is.
What fuck is. That's why I love this, because we need to redefine what fuck is.
And the words. And can we give ourselves the power back by taking ownership and responsibility of how we engage with the word, and then the energy and the intentionality and the context behind these words.
Yeah.
It's so important. And I so acknowledge you as the man that you choose to be consistently, as a father, as a man, as a black man, as someone in community, as someone in your sovereignty, in like your emotional intelligence, just the whole range. So
it's a journey, you know, and it's
a responsibility.
It's a responsibility that every single one of us owes to ourselves and to the people that we claim to have community with. You know, it's like I was talking.
And it's consistent responsibility. It's not like I'm going to take responsibility this
today,
week and then like this. Yeah.
No, it's akin to, and is a friend of mine. I'm quoting her. She said it's akin to being sick, having a contagious sickness like the flu, and leaving the house, getting on the subway, and coughing and not covering your mouth. She said all you do is infect every person in your breathing space. She goes, so if you're sick, you owe it to yourself and to the people around you to wear a mask, to deal with your sickness, to heal. And this is why every day I tell people, start your day as if on purpose. Heal. Be intentional of how you are when you leave the house. When you wake up, if you're laying next to somebody, be intentional of how you wake up next to that person. Because how you act is how you shape, how you create. How you fuck is how you create. It really is.
How you fuck anything is how you fuck it.
It's how you fuck it. It really is.
For us to close this off, what is something that you feel in resonance to that people can start doing to connect even to the actual masculine?
I think for men, and anyone who assigns to being a man, I think that one of the biggest things is first, take an account of who you are. Look in the mirror, take an account of your flaws, take an account of the flaws that people told you are flaws that are not flaws. They are the defining qualities of who makes you what, or what makes you who, rather. I think journeying into that, if you don't have the courage or even the capability of doing it yourself, surround yourself with people that will help you, that will guide you. Be vulnerable. I have a therapist. I recommend get a therapist, get a psychotherapist, talk to someone, get a friend, talk to someone. You know, it is a journey, and it's not a journey meant to be taken alone all the time. Some parts of it, yes, alone, but all the time, no. Community is how we grow. Yeah, man, we weren't designed to live with a mirror. We were designed to live with someone's interpretation of us. So gauging someone's healthy interpretation of you and other people that you feel safe around's interpretation of you is always some of the healthiest ways to live, not the mirror. The mirror, and it's the easiest way of saying, when I raise my right hand in the mirror, my image raises its left hand. That's an inaccurate account of who I am. But if I take a Polaroid picture of me, it's going to show me raising my right hand. Community will say you raised your right hand. Your friend will say you raised your left hand. Your friend will say your left eye is bothered. The mirror will say your right eye is bothered. But it's really my left eye that's bothered. And I think when we start to delve into that, we realize the importance of needing each other. I think for women, when it comes to helping with the mask of masculinity to come off, first of all, understand that men have pride innately hardwired into our being. This isn't a learned behavior. This isn't something that is attached to our faulty version of masculinity. No. Our pride is a healthy, beautiful thing. It has been corrupted, but it innately is there. If you attack our pride outright, we will fight you tooth and nail. We will. Yeah. We may not hit you, but we may argue with you. We may not argue with you, but we may shut you down. Mm-hmm. If we may not shut you down, we may close off to you. Mm-hmm. Don't attack our pride. Mm-hmm. Don't do that. Don't tear us down. Mm-hmm. Because we, like you, for so many ways, have been demeaned, have been beaten down by a society who has told us we have to be something that we aren't.
I see the two roles for women and men to take, and I also want to acknowledge all genders here, but this is what I'm working with, is men taking responsibility and women owning forgiveness.
Yes. Yeah.
So that we can meet where there isn't any of that, of like aggressiveness.
And here's where I would say
and
this.
I feel like we do need to close this up because,
it's
videos. I don't know how people's time
I know.
Like we want to
I'll say this as a last point, just to piggyback on what you said about forgiveness. One of the scary realities for me that I've realized is sometimes forgiveness actually has to come before the apology. Mm-hmm. And
fully.
That's where I declare an acknowledgement for a strength for the women that is very rarely acknowledged. For me, I believe in a creator. I believe in the creation scheme. I believe that men were created, and then from man, out of a man's rib came a woman. And I think that's a powerful image because some people have used it to demean women. I actually use it as a way to say, men, you can't live without her. Mm-hmm. Like the same way I can't live without that rib, you can't live without her. Mm-hmm. My rib cage protects all my vital organs. You are the protection to my vital organs. Mm. I need you. I need my women. I need my sisters. And even if I don't see it, even if I'm fighting you, my son, he bruises his knee and he's bleeding and he's fighting me. Daddy, no. And I have to hold his hands back so I can clean the wound. I need my women to hold me, to fight me back. Even when I'm fighting you off, I need you to help me get there. And I hate to put that on my women, on my sisters.
Because it's another layer of strength.
It's another thing I'm giving you. Hey, carry this also. Like the world hasn't given you everything else.
When I'm hating you, I need you to
hold me. But, and if there is a better way, if somebody out there can teach me a better way, illuminate me to a better way, I've yet to come across it.
Well, I think that's why we're bringing up these topics so they can be out in the public eye and we can start
discuss.
All having
I'm not perfect.
Being in question together.
Yeah, I'm learning this shit as day to day.
I'm like just fucking curious.
Fuck it.
Okay, fuck it.
If I'm wrong.
Thank you all so much for tuning in to your dear brother Najja.
Yes.
Thank you so
much.
I love you.
If you listen to the end of this, you're amazing.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, you really are.
There's so much in this one. Oh my God. We didn't even go into the roots. All right. Please tune in again next week. This is Wild Wednesdays. Love you all. Talk soon. Yay.
This is good.
So fun. I hope we recorded.
Oh my goodness. Watch it.